made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority podcast training. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 354 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Ian Bulow, and if you want to understand that you cannot assume leadership, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today it is episode 354 with Dr. Ian Bulow, and he is coming in from the Pittsburgh area. And Luke Millette, my co-host, is coming in from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I, your host, Jim Chester, coming in from Grand Junction, Colorado. And before we get rolling into this interview with Dr. Ian, I'm just going to set some ground rules, let you guys know why we do what we do. We do protect the sacred trust with our show. If you guys don't know what that is, go do a quick search and find that out. And we also protect free speech in the chiropractic profession, which I think is so valuable in this day and age. And we support subluxation and innate intelligence and universal intelligence. And if you guys need to get a refresher on any of that, go ahead and do a search for all of that. So without any further, welcome to the show, Dr. Ian.
It's a pleasure being here, guys. I'm really excited about our time together. I can't wait.
Yeah. You know, it's a long time coming. I think we're trying to piece it together last time we saw each other. And first time we saw each other, I think was 8 years ago, we said. And we've just been going forward. And there's a couple occurrences that we've had a chance to see each other. But here we are doing our first episode of Chiro Hustle.
That's right.
Yeah. So as we roll into this one, I know that there's friends, family, patients, colleagues that are going to see this interview, and they're going to see maybe your story for the first time, the way you'll tell it today. So can you just share with us your chiropractic story and what influenced you to get into this profession?
Sure. It's funny. I think, like you said, everybody's story is unique and different. It's always kind of fun to touch base with colleagues to hear that, you know what I mean? And traditionally, I never really thought mine was anything special, but it was important, right? It's special to me. It's part of my journey. But it was an interesting one because it wasn't anything chiropractically radical, but I think lifestyle, it was kind of an interesting thing. But I was in a car accident, like a lot of people, when I was a teenager, and I had hurt my back, and I got adjusted by incidentally a Logan grad, and got about a dozen visits, and I felt better, and I never really thought much after that. It just kind of helped. But later on in my career, I had a couple buddies that were homeschooled like me. I was homeschooled growing up, so K through 12, never went to public school. Did some co-ops and things, and we may get into that a little bit. But the bottom line is, I was having lunch at a friend's house on a weekday, right? So most kids are in school. We had done our homeschooling co-op. We're hanging out at his house, and I knew his dad was a chiropractor, but I didn't know anything else. And a couple things hit me. Number one, had a decent house. So I was like, all right, these chiropractors can make a living. That's kind of interesting, Number two, that we were eating alfalfa sprouts. I don't know if you know, most people should know what alfalfa sprouts are, but they're having these deli sandwiches with alfalfa sprouts. And I was like, most kids don't eat healthy. My parents would try and cook healthy. And I was like, that's interesting. So that was like a little checkbox, like these chiropractic people apparently eat healthy. And then the third thing that got me was their dad came home for lunch. And that blew my mind. I was like, wait a minute. You can help people. You can do it without cutting them open. That was another thing that I was really queasy around, like blood and guts. And you can make it home for lunch, and you can have like a decent work-life balance sort of thing, and that really kind of stuck with me. That kind of hit me deep because I knew I wanted to help people, in healthcare on some level. But I didn't think that you could make a living being a chiropractor, and then to have a decent family life as well. That's important to me, and that's what got me into it. And then from there, there's other levels to the story, but that's kind of what got me started anyway.
And so, what are some things that you would say make you unique or make you stand apart from other chiropractors?
Well, that would get into those other levels of the story, right? So the bigger picture, and this is kind of an important thing that maybe we gloss over, is, we always talk about knowing your why. You know what I mean? So I think my origin story as a chiropractor is not that impressive because it's like back pain, like who cares, whatever. We see that every day, no big deal. But I think it's important that people remember their why. You know what I mean? Like, because far too long, maybe to use a term of the podcast, in an effort to hustle, we may lose sight of why we're hustling. You know what I mean? And like, I just recently I saw that, like, and I don't want to pass judgment, you know what I mean? But in an effort to not pass judgment, I won't name names, but like someone outside of chiropractic, but is a big social media person, it looks like they're just another statistic in terms of a broken household. And it just hurts my heart. You know what I mean? I think there's virtue in the nuclear family, and I hate to see it broken apart throughout different industries. In the pursuit of whatever success means to different people. You know what I mean? Whether it's their profession or monetary success, sometimes the nuclear family falls apart, and I think that's tragic. But beyond that soapbox, going through chiropractic college, got turned on to the principle through the Delta Sigma Chi. So shout out to the Delts. I got turned on to upper cervical through the analytics of it all, and a couple of patients that came by and spoke to our class, some really special people, and so that set me on the path to do what I do now, which is, to answer your question, Luke, as an advanced instructor with the Blair Society and president of the Council on Upper Cervical. What makes me unique is probably, aside from my personality, which is important, everyone's their own person, would be our obsession around the technique, right? We do 3-dimensional CT scanning in the office. We do thermal imaging before and after every checkup. And we do board certified upper cervical work. So it's very kind of honed in, niche, for better or worse. But that's kind of how people identify us and kind of recognize us as separate and distinct.
So just say somebody's not in the loop of chiropractic and they don't know what upper cervical is or what it means.
Sure.
Kind of give people like a lay lecture on what upper cervical chiropractic is.
Honestly, it's another way to balance your spine and your nervous system. So chiropractic is sort of like the union. I kind of describe it like if you have an orthopedist and a neurologist and they had a child, right? So the orthopedist looks at the bones of the body, the neurologist looks at the nerves of the body, and the job of the chiropractor is sort of like to relate those two together. And upper cervical is no different. We want to realign the spine and reconnect the brain with the body. We just do that where the head and the spine meet. And we do that in a way that's very gentle and precise and doesn't involve any traditional adjusting or manipulative methods that involve cracking and popping and things. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just when you're hyper precise, it's sort of like opening up a combination lock. So if you have all the numbers to the lock, you don't have to push as hard to get it to move. So a lot of these upper cervical procedures, when they work on the neck, they do it in ways that most people would even question if they were being adjusted, because it's just very, very gentle, But we validate it with this before and after testing. In our office, we use infrared imaging. It's sort of like night vision, where you can measure the heat coming off the skin, and you can check that before and after, so you can validate whether or not things changed. So I would say that it has the goal of any good chiropractic approach, which is to balance your spine and calm your nerves down and reconnect the brain with the body. We just start with the head, just because there's a lot of different considerations. The neck is pretty weak and the head is pretty heavy and that sort of thing. I see Jenny there's commenting on the 3-dimensional CT. It is kind of mind-blowing, back in the day, chiropractors would feel the spine, and that's fine, that's good. One of the developers of chiropractic brought in x-rays back when x-rays first came around so that we could see the spine. But an x-ray is sort of like, and it's fine, x-rays are great, but x-rays are like taking a loaf of bread and smashing it together and looking through that loaf, right? A regular CT scan is like having a loaf of bread that's been sliced, so you can take each piece of bread out and look at each slice. And then 3-dimensional CT scanning is like giving you the loaf of bread and a knife and telling you to go to town. You can look at it in any plane, any section you want, and that allows us to look at the neck with just hyper specificity down to the millimeter. And it's a lot of fun. It's pretty cool. And I should say that allows us to help people. Like I had a gal come in the other day whose C1 bone, the atlas bone that holds the world, was in 3 pieces. And it's been that way most of her life. She didn't know that. But because of that, her quality of life was really rough, like Parkinson's type symptoms, balance issues, and all the rest. So the specialized 3-dimensional imaging was allow us to see just how complex her C1 is. And then number 2, be able to be very precise in working on that, because when your bones are in 3 places, you don't just want to go shoving it around. You need to be extremely precise in that case. So that's kind of that's what upper cervical is all about. Is it's about balancing the spine from the top down and doing it with a really high degree of precision. And not everybody needs that, but if you do, it's nice to have. It's nice to have that in society.
And what have you found are some of your favorite or most effective ways of getting new patients to schedule and come in for their first visit?
So for the chiropractors out there, I would say it again, if we're kind of just to tie these topics together, it's kind of ironic. A buddy of mine was once told when he was in school that you can't make a living off of 2 bones, and which is, again, upper cervical is the top 2 bones for the most part, which is probably the most ignorant statement I've ever heard in my life. Because what people want or should want in healthcare is speciality, right? You should not want the Walmart of healthcare. You should want to go into a place that does exactly and only what you're looking for, because then you're going to get the best service possible. So the best marketing tool would be being damn good at what you do. You know what I mean? I remember talking to a NUCA practitioner who's an older generation, and he said back in the day, like way back when, marketing was considered like almost a dirty term, because the theory was if you were really good at what you do, then that should speak for itself in terms of branding. Obviously, there's limits to that line of thought, but I've found one of the best things in my world in terms of getting marketing and whatnot is being a specialist, being really precise and being proud of what you do, whether that's just sticking straight to chiropractic or doing a specific technique within chiropractic. But don't shy away from that. Own that and be very, very good at what you do. Even if that means being terrible at a lot of other things. I'm terrible at a lot of things. So being very good at what you do. And then the other thing, and this is, I think, maybe valuable within the chiropractic community to hear, but we shouldn't be afraid of integration. Like, I think sometimes we have such a chip on our shoulder, and we still badmouth these other healthcare professions when, number one, they're needed, right? I mean, if I'm getting a car accident, I'm bleeding out of the ears. Thank God for modern medicine. And then number 2, a lot of times they're synergistic. Like when you look at other specialities, like, I don't know, neuromuscular dentistry or neuro-ophthalmology and things like that, a lot of it's synergistic. Like I talked to an optometrist who she told me her goal in her vision therapy is to balance the autonomic nervous system. Blew my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought chiropractors were the only ones balancing the nervous system. It's like, oh no, there's plenty of other people out there that are trying to do similar things, and to great effect. They have great clinical results. So it's like, the more we can actually sit down and have lunch with other providers in our area and legitimately refer to them, go figure, they'll refer back. And that's been something that I've been trying to work on over the last few years. You know what I mean? And that's layered on top of course, internet, social media, like there's the obvious stuff.
Well, I think you like really struck a real value there. Is people want to refer to people that get the job done and that can deliver the goods. And I think that that's what happens. Like the old school chiropractors, like marketing's a dirty word. Well, when people don't know who you are or where to go or how to get access to somebody that is a specialist, they wander around their whole life with conditions that they don't know how to take care of. So when somebody comes under your care and they start getting the proper analysis and adjustment with the x-ray models or the CT cone scans or whatever you're doing, people eventually are like, all right, Dr. Ian does this. go see him. And then I'm sure like interstate, inner community, even the chiropractic community, I'm sure people are like, you have to go see Dr. Ian. He does this thing and he does it this way. So I'm sure that helps with your new patient intake as well. Wouldn't you say that?
Absolutely. Yeah. We get referrals from our patients. We get referrals from other providers in the area. But to your point, other chiropractors in the region or in the nation that are contacted by friends or family, you know. And that was one thing that always bugged me was if, like, when we started doing internet marketing and things, and people would come in that lived 5 blocks from our office and they've been suffering for 10 to 20 years, it's sort of like that kills me. You know what I mean? So even as much as there's like this virtue of being referral only, it's kind of like you need to have a diversified marketing plan, because there are people in every different ecosystem, you know what I mean, that need to be communicated with. You know what I mean? So it's to their detriment if we don't diversify our marketing and our branding efforts. And that's, if there's no other reason to do that, it's to reach more people that need your care. So you do have to have a diversity, you know, but I think there is a little bit of pride around being referral only and being great communicators, but it's like, yeah, but that doesn't, I mean, there's so many different avenues you could do. I think professional integration is a missing piece, because there's a lot of hurting people that are seeing other providers. And if they knew about you, they'd happily refer to you. And then for some of the old school docs, I think we do need, if they're not already online, they need to get serious about their social marketing game, because that's where everyone lives right now. So we do a little bit of both, or all the above.
And so what are some ways that you like to take care of your own health as well as maybe your family's health too?
Yeah, that's an interesting question there, because, you know, if, depending on who's listening to this, it's nothing radical outside of what most people would consider to be the chiropractic lifestyle, which is the idea that the intelligence of life knows everything, right? So we just need to support it with what life generally creates, which is, you know, live foods and exercise and things like that, and chiropractic. And so beyond that, I was thinking about that. And beyond that, the only thing that I would say that makes me a little bit unique in terms of the healthcare pie would be a couple things. I was raised in the church, meaning the Judeo-Christian church, and I think that was a good move. I think that when we play in healthcare, looking at the bigger, broader spiritual aspects of health is an important ingredient to health. You know what I mean? I think that keeps you grounded and sane and healthy in a lot of ways, physically, but also emotionally. So that's one piece that I think is important that maybe doesn't get talked about enough. And then the other thing is, like I said, I was homeschooled and I homeschool our kids. And I think that's also healthy, because there's a lot of, if the last few years has taught us one thing, it's how easily our culture can be swayed by just, you know, groupthink, politics, stress, you know, sympathetically driven news media. There's so much garbage in the system that being a little bit disconnected from the system is not a bad thing. And so that's something that we try and do within our own household. And that's something that I was raised with. So it kind of, I think is a good, important piece, other than the obvious stuff, which is, you know, like I said, chiropractic, nutrition, exercise, anything to facilitate innate doing its job.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority podcast training. Let's hustle. Yeah, I think, you know, listening to what you're saying is eat real food. You know, you should sweat daily. You should stay hydrated. And yeah, you should stay grounded and connected to your friends and family. I think that if people just did those things, they would probably be a lot better off. And obviously, the show's called Chiro Hustle. So if people practiced a little bit of chiropractic care in their life, that would probably go a long way too.
Definitely. And I think the solution to all of the above is having a plan and having a schedule. That's another thing that we've been working on, my wife and I, over the last 5+ years, is really honing in on schedules and keeping your life organized, because if it's not on your schedule, it's not going to get done. So if you think you're going to exercise but you don't have it literally on a schedule, it's like a good luck. What gets scheduled gets done, and what is priority should be the first of your day. You know what I mean? Because as the day goes on, you lose your willpower and you'll make stupid decisions at the end of the day. So if diet, if exercise, if chiropractic, if family time, if those things are important to you, then one of the things that I've done personally to try and make that happen is create schedules that help me build that into my day-to-day routines.
I love that. What gets scheduled gets done, and that kind of counterbalances the next thing I'm going to say is what we pay for, we pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's such a frustrating thing too, but it's so incredibly true. People don't value what they don't pay for on one level or the other. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and it's a trade-off. It's your time, and
Yep.
a lot of times people think that their time is free, and their
Holy
time is
crap.
not free.
No, no. And people, and you have the time, you know what I mean? You have the time. It's such a fallacy to say to yourself, well, I don't have time. It's complete bullcrap. And there are so many people that are at such high levels of performance, way beyond you or I. I mean, everybody, there's always someone better, you know what I mean, in terms of handling life. And like I look at what I was doing last, 5 years ago, and I think I thought I was busy then. You know what I mean? Like it's you can handle it. You just have to get better at time management and priority management. It can happen.
And so, where would you say chiropractic will find itself in the next 20 years or so?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Yeah. So I think by now, if people have heard enough of your shows, they realize these questions are, we're given these in advance, but not all of us have time. I look at them, but I saw that one when it came across, and I thought, it depends. It depends on if people are willing to step up and lead or not. Because speaking on this topic of time management, and the topic of financial investment, right? Like, you can give to something you believe in those three ways: your time, your talents, or your tithe, your finances, right? And it depends on if people are willing to put up their time, their talents, or their money in the causes they believe in. If they do, then we can create the chiropractic that we want to. If we don't, and we just assume someone else will, we're not going to be any different. It'll look exactly like it looks right now, or worse. You know what I mean? If you want it to get better and you're not on a council, if you're not on a committee, if you're not in an organization, or you're not supporting those organizations, then it's a hope and a prayer. You know what I mean? So what it's going to look like, I have no idea. I just know what I'm trying to create today. You know what I mean? And I want to create, a place where chiropractic has all the rights as any other doctor or clinician in the world to take imaging, to apply care, to do whatever they see as best within their scope of practice, which is chiropractic. And so we're fighting like hell for that. Canada's come against chiropractic in some ways with the rights of chiropractors that take even just basic x-rays to do a thorough and safe job. Like I said, that patient had their atlas in 3 places. Can you imagine a chiropractor going in and thrusting on that and killing that patient? What would that do in the chiropractic ecosystem? But thank God we have imaging that we could do, because obviously any chiropractor worth their salt would know this is a risky case just by her patient presentation. But there are some, like I say, there's some provinces in Canada that are saying, oh no, you can't do that, unless you've got low back pain or what have you. So what you care about, you should be investing in. And so I don't know where it's going to be in 20 years. I think that if people care about that question, though, that they should get involved. So, that's my answer to that. I have no idea. All I know about is today, and what I care about, I'm going to put time in today and hopefully create a chiropractic that, we have usage rights. We've got options in all the major cities. I think that that's what I'd like to see. You know what I mean? I'd like to see chiropractors utilizing imaging having MRIs, cone beam CT. I think the recognition's there. It's growing. It's growing. If people get it, remember I said about integration. If you actually step out of your shell and you have indicators, like even Jim was saying, if you're getting the job done, right? So like if chiropractors say we correct subluxations and improve the communication or the expression of innate intelligence, we'll prove it. You know what I mean? Like beyond the headache going away, because Tylenol does that, right? So if Tylenol can take away a headache and you take away a headache, what's the difference between the two other than what you think you're doing, right? So my point is, if you have metrics like thermal imaging, range of motion, outcome assessments, something, if you take those things that are respected in the healthcare community and you go have lunch with other providers and show it to them, they will be impressed. You know what I mean? As they should. And that's what I think, if it boiled down to it, what I'd like to see chiropractic in the next 20 years is where chiropractors are proud of chiropractic and they're not trying to do everything else under the sun. And we get to a place where we're no longer operating with, little dog syndrome of inferiority, but we're totally proud and comfortable talking with every other healthcare professional in our town, go play golf with them, have lunch with them, cross refer to each other, and be equally and rightfully respected within our communities just as much as anybody else. That would be, I think, a great kind of like a professional utopia for the profession to kind of get into. So that's what I'd like to see happen.
So to follow up on what you just said, we cannot assume leadership. If you want to see things get done, you have to step in and do them yourself. You have to build community relationships with other practitioners and to be able to be sensitive to other people's practices and what they find to be important to them. So then they can find out what's important to you. And I think that that's important. And like you said, if chiropractors gave more time, talent, and treasure to the future of chiropractic, it would be in good hands.
Yeah.
And that's just it, is leadership, relationships, and that active involvement within all aspects of the value addition to the profession.
Amen.
And leadership is something that's definitely necessary. And that's why we do this shows, because we celebrate the greatness of the profession, and we build this tapestry of these conversations based on one thing and one topic, and that's chiropractic. We don't divert from these topics. We stay on one lane, and our job is to amplify and to be a megaphone for the profession. So that's why we get chiropractors like yourself, Dr. Ian, on here to talk about these topics, because we need them to be in a cultural conversation. We don't need to just have them around the water cooler. We need to have them, we need to have them on what we call the internet. and we need people to have access to this information. So whether it's people writing blogs, whether it's people doing ads, whether it's people doing TikToks or, YouTube videos, we need to go to where the people are, and people are spending time on all of these mediums, and people are on TikTok more than anything right now. So I think that we just have to keep on learning where the platforms are going, and that's where chiropractic will go. Chiropractors always have to stay on topic with what is trending. And I think that that's something also that people need to understand. But I don't think you can get away from being old school in your marketing strategies either. You have to get out there and meet people in your community. You have to be able to build relationships with people in your community. And it's not just the healthcare providers. You have to join professional networking groups.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go out there and meet people that are the pillars of the community that are represented in these different professional network groups, because those are the people that will become maybe your greatest referral sources. And I don't know, I just think there's a lot to be said about what you mentioned about where the future is going. Well, the future goes where chiropractors support others. And if you want to give, love, and serve, you have to network well.
Yeah. What is it? Where your intention and energy goes, right? That's where everything's going to grow, right? So you just got to invest in it. You got to go where people are. You got to get relational. And to the point of the online, everybody's communicating via these platforms. The one thing about TikTok, I think that people maybe make a mistake about is, just because you're communicating via TikTok doesn't mean you need to get in a tutu and do a dance. Like you can get on TikTok and be educational, be engaging, be remarkable. Like I did a video, and I haven't done many of them, but like the cone beam, like I said, is this 3-dimensional imagery, which is just as sexy as all get out. It's the coolest thing. And what I'm going to start doing, if I get into TikTok more, will just be doing videos on that, like just showing, because it's visually appealing.
It's curiosity.
Yeah. So you don't have to you can stay in your lane. You don't have to become a comic overnight. You can just talk little snippets on chiropractic and on lifestyle choices. And TikTok's going to merge from it already has merged from being this tween platform to now everybody under 40 is on it. And soon everyone over 40 will be on it too. So you can put whatever you want on it.
Well, I know we're coming up on the edge of our time together, but I do want to get these last 2 questions in with you.
Sure.
So let's go lightning round. Name some of your heroes. Who are some people that made a profound impact on you in your chiropractic world?
In my chiropractic world, if I go back, the first guy, the Logan guy, just because he communicated with me, he was not principled necessarily, but he communicated with me and treated me like a human being. The second one was a patient that had a pain syndrome that was just salt of the earth. He since passed away. You know what I mean? And then I had great mentors, but these are people that would never be on social media because they were introverted and they were in their headspace. So to me, my heroes are actually more of the quiet ones that aren't in the limelight as much. But a lot of them have since passed, like Sigafus. Charlie Ward's still alive, and he was a big mentor of mine growing up in the profession. Sigafus was amazing. I've had countless ones. Nowadays, I feel privileged to have colleagues in like Jeff Schulten, Robert Kessinger, my buddy Joey Miles. There's a lot of brilliant people in the Upper Cervical Council that are just fun to be around because they run organizations and they're just light years ahead of most people when it comes to organizational leadership. And to me, that inspires me for the reasons we're talking about. The next level is these leadership conversations, and not leading on social media necessarily, leading in like organizations that are getting things done. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's sexy. To me, that's appealing. So I'm inspired by my colleagues now, really. And then, I can't remember if there was another part to that question or that would be that lightning round.
Just the last question. Maybe you can share with us a quick miracle story that you've had happen in your office.
Yeah. So I think every case is a miracle because the patient's the miracle, right? So like if you're doing your job and you're clearing the subluxation, you should feel extremely proud of that and celebrate that moment. I think sometimes if we don't have that crazy case of the seizure patient clearing up or the person unconscious coming back to life, we think we're not doing a good enough job. But it's like, no. Your miracle is clearing the subluxation, and how that manifests is beyond you, right? But we all have our favorite cases. I mean, my current one is the lady I just talked about. Like she's not having as much dizziness or tremoring, and the fact that I can clear her atlas and with it being busted up in 3 places, to me is awesome and a testament to what the body's capable of. But I just love seeing the scan clear, and I know that good things are going to come down the line from that. And other than that, it's all the functional stuff that excites all of us. It's the dizziness, the vertigo, the post-concussion syndrome people are like home runs almost every time. They're a lot of fun, but I get juice out of all of them, to be honest. So nothing too crazy, but just doing your job, right? Just clear the scans, clear the subluxation, and just see what life can do. It's always a miracle. It's fun to watch.
And with that, we are just about out of time together.
That's right.
So Ian, where can people go to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Sure. So at Dr. Ian Bulow on all social media platforms is probably the easiest way. If you care about the Blair technique, reach out to me personally, and I go around anywhere it's supply and demand. So if you've got a group that wants to learn it, I'll come to you. And where I play now, most of my time politically is spent with the Upper Cervical Council. So if you go to icauppercervical.com, we have a 3-year postgraduate Diplomate program and an annual conference. The next one's coming up in Atlanta in June, and it's really high-level stuff from advanced imaging to technique updates and breakthroughs. So that's a lot of fun too for the nerds, the technique nerds out there. But otherwise, just look me up on social at Dr. Ian Buell, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
All
Well,
right.
Dr. Ian, I really appreciate the opportunity to have you onto the Chiro Hustle platform. This was a tremendous amount of value, and I'm happy to weave you into the tapestry that we're documenting with these interviews.
Yeah,
And 354. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. It's a pleasure being here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being our guest, and we want you to enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.